Hey, what's going on, guys? James here again. We've reached day 30 of our New Testament Bible recap readings. What a journey. Today we've been reading out of Luke 18, and a few different things stood out to me in Luke 18. First being the parable of the persistent widow, and Jesus is telling the story about a widow who goes to a judge and she's trying to get justice, and the judge is completely ignoring her. He really doesn't care, but the widow continues to be persistent to the judge, and finally the judge is like, okay, this woman's annoyed me enough, I'll just give her what she wants. And at the end of that parable, Jesus goes on to say that there's a lesson to be learned here, that if an unjust judge can come to a just decision, then shouldn't we all think that God's going to do the same thing for his chosen people? And this really stood out to me because I know for myself, in times of prayer, if prayers aren't being answered on my timing or the way that I want them to, I get really discouraged sometimes. And this really made me kind of rethink and realize that as long as we're persistent in those prayers, those prayers will be answered. May not be the way we want them to be or the timing that we want them, but we just have to be persistent in those prayers. It goes on. Jesus goes on to tell the parable of the Pharisee and tax collector, and in this, there's a Pharisee who despises tax collectors, and he's praying to God, saying, "Thank you for making me not like these people, not like the cheaters, the sinners, the adulterers." And then it goes on. Jesus goes on to say that a tax collector is praying to the Lord, saying, "Be merciful to me, Lord, for I am a sinner." And at the end of this parable, Jesus says that those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. And I think that really stood out to me because I know that at times we all mindlessly judge others, whether it be for so and so doesn't read their Bible as much as I do, or so and so doesn't pray as much as I do. But we have to be humble and realize that we are all sinners, and none of us do this as much as we should. None of us do this perfectly, and that really just made me really consider and think about that. Later in our readings, there's a rich man who goes up to Jesus and he's asking him, "How do I get to heaven?" And Jesus is telling him that there's one commandment he's not following, and that's giving all of his money to the poor. And they get really discouraged at this. And Jesus says in the middle of that interaction that what is impossible for people is possible for God. And man, that really stuck out to me too, because just like getting discouraged in prayer, we have to remember that God can do all things. And as long as we're persistent and we just have faith that God's got this. Have a good day, everybody.